Hey, it's Alan Berg. Before we get into this episode, I'm starting something called Ask Me Anything. That's right. You submit your questions and they could become an entire episode or something that I answer at the end of an episode. To submit your questions, look for the red button at podcast.alanberg.com. That's right, podcast.alanberg.com. Click on the red button, submit your question, and maybe you'll hear it here on the podcast. Thanks. So, what are the changes and what's happening in the world of advertising these days for wedding and event pros? Well, listen to this episode, find out. Welcome to another episode of the Wedding Business Solutions Podcast. I'm your host, Alan Berg. I'm a speaker, sales trainer, consultant, author, and I help businesses like yours sell more, profit more, and have a little more fun doing it. Enjoy this episode. Hey, it's Alan Berg. Welcome back to another episode of the Wedding Business Solutions Podcast. I am so happy to have my friend Mark Chapman back on again to talk about what's changed since the last time you were on, Mark. So hey, welcome. How you doing?
Thank you, Alan. Thanks for having me back to talk about advertising. It's my passion, my area of expertise, and there's so much going on in the world of advertising right now.
And things have changed. Things do feel different. I've been in advertising, for 30 years in the wedding and event industry, and it's we have to adapt to the customers, adapt to what's happening. But a lot of people, what did I see on Facebook? Somebody said, you have to stop advertising like it's 2005.
Yeah, yeah. It is no longer 2005.
But it's not even 2015 or even 2020 at this point, right? You
Right?
have to do.
Yeah.
So what are you seeing? What's the biggest change that you're seeing right now?
Something that happened a couple of months ago shocked me. Someone said, let me TikTok that. And what they meant was they were going to search on TikTok for how to learn about it and to find it. And it really blew my mind where I was like, oh, shoot. And let me preface this by saying Google is still the major search engine where so much great activity happens with advertising. But other platforms are starting to creep up there and really get more popular in terms of how couples and brides are searching for what they want to learn about as they're planning their wedding.
Well, the other thing I've been reading about is how they're using AI for searching. And although the search engines have put AI into it, so if you do
Yeah.
Google search, you're going to see AI, not in every search, but in
Yep.
certain searches. And maybe we could talk about that. But also that they're using ChatGPT or they're using Perplexity or they're using a guy used
Yeah.
Perplexity now for a search where I need factual information, whereas
Yep.
I use ChatGPT if I want reasoning and I want to have this conversation with it. But there was something the other day, I forget what it was. My wife and I was something, and I didn't go to Google. I went to
Yep.
Perplexity, and it
Yep.
went out. And if you watch it, it's going to tell you how it's thinking, right? It goes
Yep.
and it says, okay, I'm going to do this is what you're looking for. It's really wild. And then it searches 12 different sites, gives you all the different things. Go, okay, that's better
Yeah.
for me right now than Google. So,
Yeah.
how does that affect now people who are relying on Google ads?
Interestingly, you mentioned Google putting AI answers at the top of search results. When people are searching for a small local business, which is the majority of searches in the wedding industry, Google does not put the AI results there. Google wants the advertising dollar. They want to show the map, and it's all still good as of right now. So I don't foresee anything big happening in that sense. So Google's good. But people, of course, are using, like you're saying, AI to summarize information. But when we think about like venues, bridal stores, local photographers and DJs, they still search on Google and none of the AI comes up. And what's happening more on Google is showing the map and how close and how relevant, anyway, like physically, geographically relevant you are to
Yeah,
that business. And that's still
right.
all good.
Right. So if they're searching local like that, I also heard if they're searching for somebody specifically by name, like if I'm looking for the I Do Society or if I'm looking for Mark Chapman, I'm not going to get an AI result, correct?
Correct. That's right.
Okay.
Yeah.
But if I'm searching for an expert on advertising for wedding businesses, I might with no
Interesting.
location.
Yeah, you might. It depends on
Okay.
it, like Google's obviously learning this and hashing it all out, like what people respond best to. Because at the end of the day, Google's a business and it has to serve ads, and so how the
Right.
ads are being served are really wild too. Which put a pin in this for later in our conversation. Different campaign types in Google Ads are becoming more effective for businesses in the wedding industry. In the past, just search where you put keywords in, your ad comes up in its keywords. But now there's other campaign types. One's called Performance Max that puts your ads all over the internet in different ways, like YouTube, in Gmail, on search, and things like that. So we're doing a lot of testing with Performance Max, and that is something that may interact with AI in the future.
So it's pushing out to people based upon behavior. Then is it kind of retargeting? If you've searched over
It's
here, now you're
like
going to see it everywhere.
That's a great question. It's like the Performance Max campaigns know all about people because a lot of people are logged into a Google account in some way. They have Gmail or something. So it knows all about you and it knows where you spend your time. So it's pushing ads out to people based on who they are in the right place at the right time, which is pretty cool.
Right. So retargeting, for those who don't know, I'll give you an example. I clicked and bought a pair of pants the other day from an ad that showed up in one of my feeds, Instagram or Facebook. That's where I spend most of my time. And now every other ad is for pants now, right?
Yeah,
Everyone.
you're
And
like, I
not
already
just for
bought the
pants,
pants.
right? But it's also specifically for the one that came up that intrigued me was it was for people that are shorter, which is me. It's hard to find pants that I don't have to then bring to the tailor to have shortened, right? Because the waist is
Yeah,
fine, the legs are fine, but my
yeah.
legs are not getting any longer. That's
You're
to
a
say it.
short king, Alan Berg. Short king.
That's
That's
it.
the phrase.
That's it. I can be a lot of things. Taller is not one of them. So it intrigued me because it said, they had pants with a 28-inch length. I'm like, oh, okay. I don't have to go buy the 30s and then have 2 inches taken off of them. That's going to save me money. I'll pay a little more for the pants because of that. Well, of course, now every other one. Although interestingly, today one showed up for the tall people,
Mm.
and I had to say, no, not for me, not relevant for me. I got my friend Steve Bowler, who's 6'8". He might be interested in that, but
Yeah.
sorry, that's not for me.
Yeah.
So the algorithm didn't work on those,
Yeah.
but that's what retargeting is like once you're searching for something, or I look for a printer at Staples website, and that printer is just everywhere now. Staples is showing up everywhere. That's retargeting based upon behavior. So how is Max different than that?
How is Performance Max different than
Yeah,
retargeting? So
yeah.
Performance Max reaches people sort of at the top of the funnel. Like retargeting is when you are tracking people who have been to your website or interacted with your business in some way, and you say, "Hey Google, hey Meta, hey TikTok, go show a follow-up ad to those people who know something about me already." Performance Max campaigns reach people who don't know anything about you just yet.
Right.
And one of the cool benefits of that is that we know that as couples are planning their weddings and as they're choosing who's going to come to their wedding, who they're going to hire, they need to see you multiple times in multiple places. That's just how it is. If they don't know anything about you, it's what I call a cold audience. They don't know you, they don't like you, they don't trust you. So advertising, it can be really difficult because you need to convince them that you're amazing and convince them to give you their personal information and book a call with you. So, but Performance Max does a really good job of making sure that you show up in different places around their experience on the internet. And if you do a Performance Max campaign well, where you're not spammy and you're not pushy and you're not like, book now, I'm the most amazing, it can really do a great job to just help those couples remember that you exist multiple times. And that is so, so, so important for advertising. Because again, it's a cold audience. They don't know you, they don't like you, they don't trust you. And to get them to click and convert on your website, they need that know, like, and trust. And Performance Max helps that a lot.
So when you're creating a campaign for somebody for Performance Max, obviously these are different formats, different sizes, different things like that.
That's right.
Is it important to be consistent in the look so that even just the look becomes familiar?
Yeah, you can use images, you can use videos, you use text, of course, in your Performance Max campaign. So you want it to be your brand voice. You want it to be you upload your logo. You want your images to match, of course, what's on your website. So there's consistency in those visuals. Absolutely. It is important to consider what it looks like as well as what it says.
Right. Because I saw the other day in my spam folder, because I have to check it every day because sometimes real stuff goes there, including some of my own things, which is kind of wild. And there's some names that are becoming familiar that are spamming me, right? They're trying to sell me their mailing lists or whatever, but they're using the same person's, air quotes, person's name. And it's getting
Hmm.
to the point where I'm like, do I know that person? Right. I've
Hmm.
seen that name so much.
They're
Like,
becoming familiar.
right. And then the other one that's always weird, and I'm wondering how they get this, is it will be names of people I know, or things like that will show up with the spam. So now you're
Yeah.
wondering, okay, now how are they getting all of that in there? But that's a whole nother discussion there.
Yeah.
So let's talk about kind of best practices, right? Best practices for this. So if you're going to do social ads, you're going to do Google ads. What are some of the must have, like these are the basics? We can go off onto creative and stuff like that,
Sure.
but what are some of the things that everybody needs to know? Because some people are just, shotgunning and they don't
Yeah.
they're wasting money.
Here's one, I think one of the biggest shocking things that people overlook is that being seen in multiple places multiple times is so important. So when we work with folks, we require that they run a Google Ads campaign so that they're found when people search, whether that's Performance Max or Google Search. People, when they're searching, they're looking for a solution to their problem, answer to their question. But they're searching and like they may click on an ad or click on an organic result or click on the map, and then they go back and look at what other venues exist in that area because that's the phase that they're in. They're in that discovery phase.
Right.
If you'd say, I'm only going to run Google ads and that's it, and I'm going to make, and if it doesn't work, that means advertising doesn't work for me. But it's just not how couples shop. And I think the shocking thing about, and the most important fundamental here is like multiple places, multiple times, because couples are making a huge decision. It's huge emotionally, it's huge with their money. And if they just see you once on Google and visit your website, awesome, Google did its job. But our job as businesses in the wedding industry, if we want to convert that cold audience, we've got to be seen multiple places, multiple times. So we require folks to run a Google campaign as well as either a Meta campaign, which is Facebook and Instagram, or TikTok too, so that then there's a visual follow-up and a different type of ad, and they see you again on the internet in a different way. That I think is so important, Alan, for folks to know to like not not give advertising a bad name because, oh, it didn't work because I spent $200, but that's just not how couples shop. And that's unfortunate because it does mean it's a little bit of money, but if you use advertising, you got to do it that way.
And what's a minimum time frame to really say you've given something a shot?
I would say 90 days.
Okay.
If you have a great ad campaign, it can deliver quickly,
Right.
so you can obviously get quality leads quickly through advertising, but because of how couples shop, they take their time and that's okay. And especially now, I mean, I'm sure you're hearing this all across the board where couples are just taking longer to make decisions. That is
Yeah.
the world we live in. And it's different than it was in the past, but it is what it is. And so how we adapt in our different tools is important.
And we are right now in a year after a presidential election year, which does get wonky. And in all the years I've been doing this, every presidential election year got wonky. But the year after
Yeah.
was kind of a normal wedding year in terms of number of weddings and dollars spent, which meant people booked, but they had to book later because if they weren't booking in the year before, they had to be booking later to still get married
Yeah.
during that year. That's the good
Yeah.
news. That if you still have open dates, there's good news. There's still people out there that might come to you later. It's bad news when you're looking at the holes in your calendar and freaking out a little bit.
Yeah.
But there
It's
you go.
scary.
But it is a time where following up some of the basics, like following up, right?
Yeah.
So when somebody does the ad, right, whether it's just a straight Google ad or whether they do the Performance Max or whatever, or the Meta, what what are the options somebody can do? They see that ad, it attracts them, right? First step, right? Yeah,
Yep.
my 4 steps to getting more sales: get their attention, get an inquiry, have a conversation, make a sale. So getting their attention, the ad did it, get their attention.
Yeah.
Where could that go next? So I click on that ad, and
Yep.
what happens? Where does it go?
It depends on your business. But in the post-click experience is what you're asking.
Yeah.
Whether you use like a dedicated landing page with an offer, some people use those, or some people direct ads to their homepage. One thing that's going to be really important to convert a cold audience on that landing page or your website is that you give them the opportunity to start a conversation with you or ask a question without requiring them to fill out 20 form fields in a contact form. And this is equally as important to any advertising advice that I can share is what happens after the click. And so I'm so glad you asked that because what's working right now really well, let's just jump to that. Websites that have a little chat feature that where someone can ask a question. If you're a bridal store, hey, do you carry this designer? If you're a venue, hey, do you have this date available? If you are a wedding pro and you don't have pricing on your website, like allow people to chat with you to ask about pricing. And I know that how frustrating that is to get that pricing question and then they don't respond after that, and that's fine. It's not a good fit for them. The takeaway here is like allow people to start a conversation with you without divulging all of their personal information and their physical address and stuff like that. Because if we think about their journey and say you are a wedding pro and you're not at the top of the list like a venue, they have filled out probably 20 to 30 different contact forms and given their information so many times. And they have what I call form fatigue. They're tired of doing that. They don't want to do that. They just need to get their wedding planned. So make it easy for them. That is my big takeaway when it comes to like whatever your website looks like, make it easy for people to contact you.
And we've spoken about this with the phone number not being required. Go back to the last
Right.
episode we did about that.
Nobody wants your
Uh,
phone call.
right. Well, and the other thing is we're dealing right now, we are on the cusp between Gen Y and Gen Z. The
Yeah.
youngest Gen Ys are 29, the oldest Gen Zs are 28. Our average wedding couple these days is 28 to 30 years old. There you go. So
Yeah.
we know that Gen Y is phone averse. We know that Gen Z is even more phone averse. And yet
Yeah.
the other day I was having a discussion online with someone where somebody put up a thing. It was a planner reached out to a restaurant about asking if they could handle 100 people. And the restaurant came back and said, let's have a phone call. And the planner said, I don't think so.
No, thank you.
And there
Yeah.
were both sides here, people supporting the planner, people supporting the restaurant. And I said, the restaurant didn't answer the question. And I'm not saying
Yeah.
the restaurant couldn't ask for a phone call, but answer the question first and say, sure, we can handle 100 people. It depends upon the day of the week and the time. Can we have a quick call to talk about that? But first answer
Right.
the question. And somebody was going back and forth with me and they were saying, well, the planner is wrong, right? They're totally wrong. I said, no, they're the customer. And the
Yeah.
customer is never wrong. The customer
Yeah.
says, I want to communicate. First of all, the customer reached out digitally. They're telling you that right off the bat.
This is my
And
preferred method of communication.
but
Yeah.
the other thing is the restaurant didn't answer the question first and then try to continue that, maybe changing to the phone, maybe right away, maybe later. And
Yeah.
I related a story where I was going to Europe, and I know that Square for my credit cards doesn't work in Ireland, doesn't work in the UK, actually only works in the US. And if you have Square in Canada, it doesn't work in the US, and Square in the US doesn't work in Canada unless they've changed that. So I was trying to find somebody that I could take a credit card internationally. PayPal, I have their device, can't do it internationally. There you go. So I
Yeah.
reached out to my bank, Chase Bank, and I reached out and I said, hey, does your credit card processing work? Your mobile device work internationally? And somebody came back and said, let's have a phone call. And I said, answer the question first. And if the answer is no, there's nothing to discuss. And if the answer is yes, I would be happy to have a call. But this
Mm-hmm.
is a deal breaker. Like
Mm-hmm.
the answer no was, and it turned out it was no. So what
Yeah.
were we doing here? I think the same thing with the restaurant. If the restaurant, the answer was no, there's no
Yeah.
reason for a call. If the answer was yes, and somebody said, well, the fact that the restaurant asked for a call meant that the answer was yes. I said, no, my banker asked for a call and the answer was no.
Yeah.
So we can't assume that. And then I saw one just the other day where their ad on the Knot was linking to their website. Their website didn't talk about weddings. Their website, they're a band and they do club dates and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
And now you're going to send people there, and there's nothing there about weddings. Forget the fact that I think there were other things which I told them could be updated on the site. That's a whole nother discussion.
Mm-hmm.
But you said, people sending to a homepage versus a landing page. What's your a dedicated landing page for the ads? What's your preference?
What the preference, not the preference, that what works based on data is not my opinion. The example you shared was perfect. Like if you're running an ad for weddings, if for your services for weddings, but you do other things too, that's fine. Don't send people who click on your ad for weddings to your homepage that says everything that you do. It's got to go to a dedicated wedding page about your service for weddings, hands
Right.
down,
Right.
1000%. Yeah.
Now, does it have to be a dedicated landing page for the ads, or can it be your wedding page or your mitzvah page or your quince page or whatever?
Over the years, it's gone back and forth. And honestly, it's sort of 50-50 right now. Particularly, there's a process that we have for venues where we actually have like a really great design of a landing page that gives a couple everything they need to learn about the venue and a one-page experience to decide if it's for them or not. But for like wedding pros or bridal stores, especially, the homepage is the best place because that bride may want to look at like the gallery or like the designers before she makes her appointment or things like that. So there isn't any wrong answer, but the most important thing is that like the experience on the page matches the message of what you put in your ad. If you offered something in your ad or you're talking about how great you are at weddings in your ad, it has to go to a page that supports that message and carries that message through and initiates conversation with people and says, hey, if you want to learn more, there's something you don't see here. Let me help you. Here's how you can get in touch. Chat, text message, fill out the form if you want to. Yeah.
So it's the continuation of the conversation. So
It's the
I
continuation of the conversation.
right. I've talked about this, written about this, where marketing is like a relay race, right? So you put the ad out there, the baton is out there for somebody to grab. They grab it by clicking on it. But now where did it take them? If you take me to their homepage and now I have to guess what you do or I have to choose again, you've dropped the baton, right? Where so if I
Don't
take you
make
to
them
that,
hunt.
don't
Yeah.
make them hunt, right? And that's another thing when I'm looking at websites. what are your main services? Now, if your main service is weddings and you do corporate or whatever, do I have to click services to find out that you do weddings?
Yeah.
That's delaying it. And looking at the page, what's the imagery? In this case of this particular band, there was no imagery of a wedding there, and
Yeah.
I didn't know where to go. Now, let's talk about that one page though. So on that
Yep.
one page that's going to give them what they need to do to continue the conversation that the ad started,
Yep.
to get them to take the next action, which is contacting in that case or making an appointment or whatever they want to do. What are the main
Yes.
elements that you feel
Yes, I
should be
love
there?
this. We've studied this for years and we've tested thousands of landing pages. And this is specific to venues. I'll be straightforward about that. So for venues, the main elements are images of the venue and the architecture of the venue. No close-ups of couples, no close-ups of cakes. You're not a baker. You're not a planner. You're literally a venue, and people are there to find out what does a space look like. So lots of great photos of the space. You're going to have some testimonials and some social proof, we call it. And those testimonials that you put on the page should be short and sweet. They should have if it's a Google review, like put Google underneath it so people can verify that testimonial in your Google reviews. It's going to have a succinct, maybe 7 to 10 bullet point list of what makes your venue unique and different. Do you have lodging? Are you all inclusive? Like really tell people and answer those questions of what makes your venue different and unique. And so we've got photos, we've got testimonials, we've got bullet point list, a little bit about what works really well is tell the story of the venue. Is this a special place that's historic? Is it a family property? Like who are the people behind it? Because even though venues are really a product and people are going to decide if they want that product or not, like the people that are there matter a whole lot. And then the last element last is having different ways to convert. So in our world, we put 3 different calls to action. Someone can fill out a form if they want to request pricing for their particular date, or they can actually book a tour on that page. We use Calendly with a lot of our venues. So just like click the book a tour button and they book their tour, if that's okay for your venue, or click to text to ask a simple question. Because some people don't want to fill out a form. A tour might be too much for some couple, but maybe there's like, oh, I just want to ask a question. So those 3 different ways for someone to convert on the landing page work really well to meet the needs of the couple wherever they're at, because every couple's at a different space, and that's okay.
What about pricing?
We do in our world, we require that all of our people that work with us put pricing on at least a starting price on the landing page or like an average cost for the venue on the landing page. There's different people in the industry who have different thoughts about that. I think that what we've experienced is that you get more quality leads, maybe fewer quantity, but if you have more quality leads in your funnel, it's easier for you to manage those leads than trying to chase everyone down who's not the right fit for you.
Right. And it's better for the client as well, because if they're out of the budget, then they shouldn't reach out. They're entitled to have a beautiful wedding. It doesn't have to be at your venue.
Absolutely.
Right. Now,
Absolutely.
I don't like starting prices. I've written about this because it is the cheapest thing you have and the thing you don't want to sell.
Fair. That's
I
fair.
prefer price ranges because it's called
Yeah.
anchoring. And then you can put the most popular. And when people say to me, well, I don't have a price range, I said, everybody's got a price range. Everybody that's ever booked you for anything has a price. Therefore, you have a
Yeah.
price range. And you can have different price ranges for in season, out of season, weekend, not whatever. But a price range is vague enough to give them an idea of what you cost and not specific enough so that they still have to reach out to get their price. So if you said
Yeah.
that, beautiful weddings here from May through October, the most, whatever your busy season is, right, range from 18,000 to 42,000, with our most popular options averaging or starting at 23,000,
Yeah.
28,000, whatever. The again, one of the disadvantages to me of a starting price is you might lose a higher end wedding because they think you're not capable of doing that.
So interesting.
Yeah. So I like the idea of price range because we've all thought about this, right? You're buying something you've never bought. You have no idea what it costs. And you go, can you give me an idea what that costs? And they say, well, I need to know more. It's like, I know, but can you give me an idea? Right. And we've all been there. This is not an age thing. And when you're buying something you bought before, like I just bought a new laptop, I had an idea what it cost. It actually ended up costing less than I thought. Believe it or not, that 6 years later, my MacBook, with every box checked, cost less than it did 6 years ago, which is kind of
crazy.
Which is great. Not a lot less. I'm not going to say a lot less, but I expected it to be more.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I said it's going to be about $3,000. It was $2,800. Okay, there you go. I knew
That's
that
wild.
already.
Yeah, yeah.
But the first time I bought a MacBook, I had no idea, and it says they start at $1,395 back then.
Well, then when you walk out the door at $3,000 plus
$3,000,
yeah,
right, with everything on there, right? now I have that idea, and that's called framing, right? We've bought
Yeah.
something before, like if you need a new headset or I need new AirPods, I got an idea what that costs. I might
Yeah.
be wrong a little bit, right? But you're buying something you've never bought before. That idea of that. Now, I like people to have that on their website because we know that Gen Y and Gen Z have grown up in a world where they can find pricing for just about anything online.
Yeah.
That's their world.
Yeah.
So the idea of going on and not seeing any price, what you don't know is who you're losing because there's no price there. What you do
Hmm.
know is the people that are reaching out that can't afford you because you said, hey, come on in. And do you really want to have tours, especially if you're going to have the book a tour button? Do you really
Yeah.
want to have tours with people only to find out later that they can't afford it? And yes, I know there's somebody listening that's going, yeah, but I'm able to talk them up from, from 15,000 to 18,000. Right. You talk them into the bottom of your range.
Yeah.
Isn't it better to take someone who's in your range and talk them up for better results that are more than to talk them into your range?
Yeah.
Better use of your time. So, so
I
go, let's,
agree 1,000%, Alan. Like when I say starting pricing, like
yeah,
that's like the bare minimum. Like most of what we do is like
right.
there is a range, there's different seasonality to it,
Yeah.
and we prefer more robust information about pricing on that landing page than less. What
Yeah.
I've found is there's a lot of resistance to folks in the industry or folks that we work with who are like, you know what, I've got my strategy, and like I'm not going to force anything on anyone. But
Yeah.
to your point, like and I want to actually really quickly before we wrap this thought up, like when we talk about pricing. When you have referrals and warm leads, or someone, a planner or someone else is giving you that lead, and you don't have pricing on your website, but like they felt the form anyway, like they found out your pricing from someone else. And so in my
Right.
context with the world of advertising, if it's a cold audience and they don't know anything about you yet, that pricing information is so important because if
Yeah.
they don't know anything about you, they don't like you, they don't trust you. If they don't have a framework for pricing, they're not going to convert and they're not going to become a quality lead. So that's my soapbox when it comes to like that and advertising.
Well, but again, it's a consumer behavior, right? Like you'll never see the person that came to your site and left because there wasn't the price there. And if you just ask yourself, have you ever looked on a site, there was no pricing, and then you went to look at another site and there was pricing and you never came back, right?
Yeah.
Right. So
Yeah.
I have it with these the Google ads. I'll just use the pants because that one just came up. Right. Another one came up and it said specifically for people of shorter stature. I'm like,
Yeah.
cool, but give me an idea. The other one told me it was, $79 or whatever it was for the pants. Well, then I get there and I see that it's, $150 or whatever, which is like double what the other ones were. And I'm like, kind of wish I knew that before coming. Right. Like
Yeah,
I
you wasted your time.
now,
Yeah.
it might be fine if I expected to spend $150 for pants, but the anchor was set with the other one at 79, right? And then there's
Hmm.
another one that came up at 19. I'm like, okay, there's a catch here. There's definitely a catch
Hmm.
here. Well, the catch is you sign up and then monthly they're going to send you stuff or something like that. It's like, okay, tell me that up front, right?
Yeah.
So, or what is it in the apps? In-app purchases, right? Like you get the app for free, but then
Hmm.
it's in-app purchases, right? There you go.
Hmm.
All right. So going back to these calls to action. Right?
Yeah.
Well, no, actually, I want to go back to what you said about the description of. Tell me a little bit about the venue. And this is where I've been
Yeah.
using AI with my clients, actually with their social proof,
Yeah.
uploading as many of your reviews as you can. And if you ask ChatGPT, write
Yes.
me, write me a short paragraph that describes the kind of results a couple can expect when they choose our venue. Use the you voice, right, and speak about results
Yeah.
and then edit it. Always edit that, right? But that will come up with that short paragraph for you, not in your words because you're biased, right? You're going to
Yep.
talk about your service. We love our service. Our service is great. And your reviews are raving about your food. It's going to come up and say, well, people love their service. What they really rave about is their food, right?
Yeah.
So that's an interesting way. If you're one of those people that's stuck with what are my words here, right?
Right.
The social proof hugely important. The short, like you said, but this is another way to use social proof because it's your content, right? People gave it to you. They said, this is what we've experienced. And the beauty of it is they're talking about the results they've already experienced. So when this writes this, it's not writing about like the promise, we think we could do this for you. No, this is what we actually do.
And it's proven. I love that. I
And
love the idea. There's so many uses for Chat GPT, and especially like what you're saying is like summarizing and condensing things that are not your perspective. Because as a business owner, we are all too close to our own businesses to see them for what they're at. But how great do we if we have a bunch of reviews on Chat GPT to put those together? Because if I see another website that says "Have the wedding of your dreams" as the headline of the website, I think I'm going to lose my mind. Like, no, stop. Like, it is so important to tell what makes you different? What do you offer that someone can't get anywhere else? And you make that the headline of your website. And sometimes it's a tool like ChatGPT that helps you discover that from your reviews.
Absolutely. I think we all need to do that. I've done it myself. I've also taken the wording on my website, run it through, and said, could you update this for a Gen Y, Gen Z audience? Because I wrote it and I thought it was fine. Fortunately, it didn't
Yeah.
change that much, which was good, right?
Yeah.
I do not tell it to write it for Gen Z because then I can't read it. Because then,
Too much
then I,
risk.
yeah,
Yeah.
too much. Well, again, I was told I had Riz, and I had to find out that that was actually good. So, all right, there you go. Uh, but what was no cap? I still don't. What's no cap? I
Yeah.
forget what that is. I have to look. I actually have a Slangomatic generational translator I bought because it came up in my
Amazing.
feed. So, but the idea here of using using your social proof with your or using ChatGPT with your own content. And I've spoken about this on a podcast. A year ago, I didn't use it. I didn't use AI at all because I'm a content creator. I've just published my 12th book. My 13th one is in public is in production now. We're doing the layout and stuff like that. I have over 300 podcasts. I can create content. Like I'm okay
Hmm.
with that, right? But when I learned how to use it with my own content and with my clients' content, competitive analysis, upload your own reviews, upload your competitors' reviews, and ask it to tell you what's different about your results versus theirs. Because your venue, your DJ services, your photography services, your invitation services don't look that much different when you list out the bullets.
Yeah.
But when you list out what makes us different in the eyes of our customers,
Yeah.
now, even though you all have 5-star reviews, they all have 5-star reviews. It looks different there.
Yeah.
So, all right. So let's go back to the calls to action. I love that you said give them multiple ways to contact you because we
Yes.
need to do that. Also, that we need to give them a soft way to contact you that doesn't say book us now, book a
Yes.
tour. You're given the option to book a tour if it's a venue,
Absolutely.
but it's not the only thing that you're asking for,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And not a phone call.
Yeah. And here's what giving multiple calls to action does, Alan. And there was a day 10 years ago where I would tell you absolutely no, one call to action is the only thing to do, blah, blah, blah. We are in a different world, and I am excited to have evolved as well. But the presence of multiple calls to action builds a subconscious sense of trust where people are more likely to fill out that form and give you their personal information if they know they could text you if they wanted to, if they know they could book a tour if they wanted to. And it's fascinating how that works. But it's like, hey, if the doors of this business, this venue are open, I can contact them however I want to. But you know what? I probably know the most direct answer to getting what I need is going to fill out this form. So they're going to fill out the form more simply by having those other options there. It's psychological. It's awesome.
And they're signaling to you this is the best way to contact me because they reached
Yes.
out. Now, you and I have spoken about this, and I changed it on my form in the phone field. It says put your phone number if you prefer texting. Thank you very
Yay.
much.
Yeah.
I
Yep.
did that there, and I do get texts, and they're there. But adding the text widget to my site is really what increased my text because I've had
Yeah.
in the wording on the site it said call me, text me, email me, and they've been links for years. But
Yeah.
when I added the widget that is like a chat widget, but it's a text widget,
Yeah.
it says it's text. And the reason is it's not live, right? Like I may not respond to you right away because I'm likely on a plane, I'm likely on a stage or something like
Yeah.
that. I don't want to set that expectation. But I also get Facebook messages, Instagram messages, LinkedIn messages. I get these other messages as well. And there I'm going to respond that way because
Yep.
that's how you're signaling to me. Will I change that? Sometimes. And then
Mm-hmm.
sometimes not. Sometimes it just be
Mm-hmm.
like, hey, we're having a conversation here. And that was kind of
Sure.
my point to that restaurant and planner thing was the
Yeah.
planner started a conversation by emailing. The
Yeah.
restaurant chose to add friction by trying to change that too soon.
Yeah.
So let's just reiterate something we've spoken about already. That contact form on that landing page. What are the fields?
Name and then email address, phone number. What else is there? For a venue wedding date, like preferred wedding date's pretty important, obviously, because
Okay.
that's connecting if the venue's available. And then we've actually added a new one, Alan, which is really fun. We did a lot of testing and we decided this was the way to go. We added a drop down to indicate, to ask the person filling out the form to tell the venue who they are and where they're at in their journey. So the examples are, I'm not engaged yet. I'm helping someone else find a venue. I'm engaged and I'm looking to tour multiple different venues, or venue XYZ is at the top of my list. I want to book a tour now. So typically we would say adding more form fields is no bueno. Like
Right.
you create a lot of friction. This one where we did testing, we added this and we tested it across many landing pages. And what we found was that the conversion rate in the landing page stayed the same, but the venue got more information about who was filling out the form. So, because some venues have these automations where they're like, oh, congratulations on your engagement. Well, like,
Mm,
if you're not engaged yet and they just told you that, oops. And so
right.
giving more context of who the person is allows the venue to see. But where we started this conversation was about phone numbers and form fields. And like we do not require the phone number to be filled in, but we say fill in the phone number if you prefer to be texted, and that indicates to the person receiving the lead, hey, this lead's preferred method of communication. Text them.
Right.
Do not send them a 10-page email. Send them a text message and say hello. Be a human.
Right. Now, do you give them a box to tell something? Is there like an open field?
We don't. We found
Okay.
that drop down of like who are you and where are you at in your
Yeah.
journey is enough. Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
I like that. And if you do have automations, they can trigger different things. Like if
Correct.
it's I'm helping someone, your automation can be, oh, it's so great that you're helping your, your friend's family, whatever.
Yeah.
Do that. So I love that because and I think it's also the way you word it. You word it in a very friendly way, and instead
Yeah.
of very data driven, even though it is data driven for us, but in a very friendly way. And I think that's important in a lot of the wording, and a lot of what I see on people's sites is still too formal. And we are
Yeah.
not in a formal world, even for corporate. We're not in a formal world. You're dealing, again, your older Gen Ys now are 40 years old. So there's a good chance that who you're dealing with at a corporate for a holiday party, whatever, because people listening don't just do weddings, that person is pretty likely going to be a Gen Y. They might be a Gen X, right? But they might be a younger Gen X with Gen Y tendencies, right? We can get into all that kind of
Mhm.
stuff over there. One more thing for the venue: wedding date. Do you have a thing to indicate that they're flexible on their date?
It's not like a form field where you have to pick a specific date. It's like it says preferred wedding date and they type it in. And so it ends up being like they could type in words, they could type in numbers.
Okay.
It allows them
Okay.
to type in whatever they want, which I know for some CRM systems can be frustrating. But that's about like I don't know, like that's about us, right? Like that's making it easy for us. But what we
Right.
want to do is want to make it easy for that person who came from an ad who doesn't know anything about you. Like don't force them to pick a date that's
Right.
not actually their date. So
Well,
yeah.
what about a date field that is a calendar with a box that they can check that says date flexible?
Ooh, interesting.
I
Yeah.
see. I like that as a visual because they're
Yeah.
able to say I'm flexible or not. And
Yeah.
if you do that, please have your calendar start with today. Don't have it start with 2000 and 17 or something like that. I had
Yeah.
one just recently that it came up like that. Um, and well, not to get political, but there was something with people are 150, they're getting Social Security was because the
Yeah.
default date was 150 years ago. If you don't put a date in, that's what it was, and it was messing up the data that way. So
Yeah.
you want
Yeah.
it, but you don't want me to have to start choosing the year except if it's in the future, right? Like it
Right.
should start at
Exactly.
2025. Let's go
Friction.
into
Yeah.
but these are the things that could make you seem out of touch, right? Like a website that is not mobile friendly. And I wish I
Yeah.
could stop saying that these days, but I still can't stop saying
It's
that.
2025 and we still are, huh?
We still are. And, it's, I understand the friction for the business. It costs money and time to create a new website. But I like to say that if you think your website is a little out of date, it's costing you more in lost business than the new site's going to cost you.
Sure.
I
Yeah.
mean, that's what it is. So,
Yeah.
all right. So, as far as what's different, let's circle back around to the beginning. What's different in advertising these days? You have this Performance Max over there.
Yep.
In terms of these things apply what we spoke about: Instagram, TikTok, Google, Facebook.
Yep, I
Yeah.
think circling back to the difference in advertising too. We mentioned TikTok. Someone said to me like, "Oh, let me TikTok that," and that like lit up a whole world for me, which was pretty amazing. TikTok just recently launched search ads, which is pretty cool. TikTok also just this last week decided that it wasn't going to force advertisers to pay $20 a day as its minimum budget. Now you can pay $5 a day, so it's opening up a lot of new world for small businesses in the wedding industry to get in there, and to really wow people with short form video. And then one of the other biggest takeaways I want to make sure that your audience hears about advertising is that when you DIY your ads and you follow whatever Google or Meta or TikTok told you to do, it can be a huge mistake. If you're going to DIY your ads, you need to take time to learn the platforms. And I want to plant one seed of what's called bidding algorithms or bidding strategies. These platforms say, hey, do you want to pay money for sales? Do you want to pay money for leads? Do you want to pay money for traffic? And it's very tempting to say, of course, I want to pay money for leads. Like, here's my money, get some leads. But what these platforms don't tell you is if you aren't tracking leads already on your website and feeding lead data into the platform before you pay it money, the algorithm can't do it, can't find the people that are going to become a lead because it has
Right.
no data to build on. So learn the platforms before you DIY it. Spend the time to figure out what these bidding strategies is the overarching term is before you put your money there. Because you're going to put some money into it and you're going to say, I paid Meta for leads, I didn't get any leads. It wasn't Meta's fault. It was yours for not understanding how it works. No judgment, but that's big.
Well, but that's with advertising in general. It's not set it and forget it, right? No matter what the
It's
platform
not.
is.
It really
And
isn't.
then
Yeah.
and then it's that handoff to your website, or if they get to your storefront on the Knot or Wedding Wire or Zola or whatever it is, you have to complete that. If you have incomplete information, people are going to move on to somebody who's got complete information. I did a
Yeah.
webinar on that for Wedding Pro last year for that. We'll be talking about that more because it's going to start affecting the algorithm where the people that have completed the information are going to show up more because they are giving better experience to the users, which is what
Yeah.
the platform is trying to do there. Um, and then your website, your website has to have that as well. Not just this landing page, but you need to have those kind of calls to action on every page. You need to
Yep.
have the great photos on every page. You need to have the social proof on every page. You need to have the you
Yep.
voice talking about results on every page. So it all fits together. Um, and then you have to have reasonable expectations about what to get from it, and it's really about conversion. I hate when somebody comes and says, "Oh, that's expensive." Well, you talked about $5 a day versus $20 a day on TikTok, right? So $20 a day is $600 a month. Is that
Yeah.
expensive? I can't tell you that
Yeah.
because that's an incomplete information to say it's
Right.
$600 a month. What did it bring you? And then what does that bring you? Because we have the residuals for all that kind of stuff. So $5 a day. I think you had said on a previous one, if you want to try a platform, it's got to be $10-15 a day, right? To get
Yeah.
any kind of real good
Yep.
idea.
And this is great. I'm glad you asked. Context for why I'm excited about $5 a day on TikTok is because like TikTok should not be your only advertising outlet where you expect to get a bunch of leads because people are not on there uh, necessarily to like find their dream wedding venue. They're excited to learn about venues and look at videos and see the tour and see the drone flyover video and things like that. But $5 a day on TikTok, when paired with a really powerful Google Ads campaign that matches when someone searches for barn wedding venue in New Hampshire and they found your barn wedding venue in New Hampshire and then they see your video on TikTok, then it's powerful together. You're right. You have to have a budget of really, we recommend about $1,000 a month so that couples do see you in multiple places multiple times. No matter what type of business you are, they've got to see you a couple times.
Right. And then make sure wherever they can see you that you are up to date with your photos, that you have current
Yeah.
reviews. I see all the time. I have people that are on the Knot or Wedding Wire. Some are paid, some are not. And I'm going to a client actually this week, and 2021 of one of their profiles is the most recent. No responses. Look at their Google. They've responded to every Google review. They have current Google
Oh,
reviews. I said,
wow.
yeah, but you know what happens when you search them on Google? It shows the Knot
The not
reviews,
profile.
and
Yeah.
then you can click there to see old reviews, right? So now all of a
Yeah.
sudden you're not walking a mile in their shoes. So
Yeah.
you and I could definitely talk forever about this,
Yeah,
and
we
that's why
could.
you've been on so many times. So is the offer still good if somebody wants 30 minutes with you to find out what they're doing?
Absolutely. If you're DIYing your ads, especially, like, let's talk. Share your screen with me. I'd love to look at your ad campaigns and say, hey, you know what? This was a wonderful thing. This was maybe a mistake that was made by following Google's advice or whatever. Like, please reach out. Happy to do it. I'm fascinated by it anytime.
Well, we appreciate that now that I put you on the spot for that, but thank you.
Oh, good.
And thanks for joining. Check out all the links in the show notes here, but it is theidosociety.com.
That's correct. Theidosociety.com.
There we go. Mark, thank you for joining me again.
Thanks, Alan.
Hi, it's Alan Berg. Thanks for listening to this episode of the Wedding Business Solutions podcast. If you have a suggestion for a future topic or a guest, please go to podcast.alanberg.com and you can make your suggestion there. You can also do it at Ask Me Anything, which is a button on that page, or just email me at alan@weddingbusinesssolutions.com. And if you'd like to find out how I can help you with sales training, website review, consulting, or speaking for your group or organization, possibly at no cost to the organization, contact me directly, alan@weddingbusinesssolutions.com. Thanks again for tuning in.